fugitive or a slave, would you harbor?
My mother loved that song, and I loved my mother. It was in her lap that I learned to read on the floor of Liberation Bookstore in Harlem. It was by her hand that I wrote my first poem when I was 5 about Haitian immigrants refused and capsized. Despite the way the state and the media had its eye fixed on black descent, it was by my mom's practice as a member of the Black Panther Party that I learned that my black was neither criminal nor guilty. It was my mother who first introduced me to Antonio Gramsci, a 19th century Italian theorist who said, "The old world is dying." I forgot about doing that. The old world is dying. The new world is struggling to be born. Now is the time of monsters. The state, our government and its many arms, can be a body politic or it can be a beast. 21st century technology can either usher in an era of justice and democracy that many of us yearn and work for every day, or, as we've heard, it can enable vast inequality powered by whiteness, armed by toxic masculinity, drenched in capital. The decision is ours. Because now is the time of monsters. American policing is one face of that monster, violent and epidemic, rooted in a history of anti-black slavery, designed at its inception to preserve white supremacy. These sisters know. They are the victims of hate crimes recently. They know that now is the time of monsters. They faced off with some of them and left with their lives, unfortunately for destiny. Two of the men who protected her did not leave with their lives, because now is the time of monsters. That same social control that enforced laws to make black bodies America's first currency continues to drive persistent racial hierarchy today. It deputizes all those who see itself in their reflection. Its victims are many, with the pool expanding by the minute. See, we are the defamed, the dead, the deported. American policing treats us like enemies, like terrorists. But we are the terrorized, bombed and beaten by a fundamentalism whose only religion is power, betrayed by the myth of a democracy that has never belonged to us. I'm talking about 2.3 million people incarcerated in the United States. I'm talking about over 60% of those incarcerated being people of color. I'm talking about the fact that more than 7 million are under the control of the carceral state. Hate crimes against blacks, Muslims, migrants, and transgender people are on the rise. 240 black people have been killed by police in 2016 already. American policing is a monster. Despite the dead, the millions in the street demanding change, the protests, the policy battles, there are some fundamental beliefs that blame victims of state violence, that focus on bad apples instead of broken systems, and they result in false solutions that protect police from accountability, offer these piecemeal reforms with no enforcement, or my personal favorite, claim to remove bias by adding math and machines. Instead of action to prevent police violence, to protect civilians, or hold police accountable after the fact, politicians are trying to pass these laws that make police a legally protected class, while the dream of full citizenship for those they jail, maim, and kill remains persistently out of reach. Let me say this clearly so that you can hear me. Neither math nor machines can extract 4 centuries of white supremacy from American policing. Let me just say it again so you really hear it. Neither math nor machines can extract 4 centuries of white supremacy from American policing. Simply inserting digital technologies into discriminatory policing without addressing its fundamental flaws can only serve to supersize that discrimination, can only serve to reduce community safety, and can only violate the civil rights of the most vulnerable among us. Nothing else can happen. I'm talking about body-worn police cameras. I'm talking about Stingray cell site interceptors, license plate readers, facial recognition software, fusion centers, drones, and other aerial surveillance. They call these the tools of counterterrorism. At the same time, they name us, one by one, terrorists, enemies of the state, simply for saying, for acting like, for believing that we matter, because we do. Black lives do matter. We matter not only to ourselves, but also we matter to you. Because it is through our bodies and our blood that targeted surveillance becomes mass surveillance. It is on our black, brown, and poor backs that those in power have used the technologies of their day to aggressively maintain the status quo. That's why we're going city to city, delivering digital security training. That's why we've been organizing for 3 years now for civil rights protections against local policing using this technology. That's why we've been working with our friends at the ACLU and in other places with Color of Change on these social media prohibitions against surveillance. These technologies don't replace bias. They reflect the bias of the rulers and the rules they exist to protect. In doing so, they strip even the hope of democracy from the policing process. From colonial times to now, surveillance technologies have been used to separate the citizen from the slave. No, to protect the citizen from the slave. In this, technology becomes a tool. And like any tool, it requires power to wield. Power requires strategy, not simply ideology. It requires new allies and clear mandates. Let me offer you mine. I will harbor you. The question you must answer is, will you harbor me? If you've decided to stand on the side of history that finds safety and belonging in the liberation of all life on the planet, then you will oppose the expansion of mass incarceration through electronic monitoring. You will oppose seeing us murdered on camera day in and day out without accountability. You will oppose the censorship of our digital speech by social media companies and by the repeal of net neutrality. It's time for you to decide to be 21st century abolitionists. It is time for you to risk your body to save democracy's soul. I've done that enough. Bending technology's arc toward justice requires bold, new action. It requires that cities and states refuse to comply with unconstitutional government requests and mandates that violate civil and human rights to free speech, freedom of the press, our right to congregate, to organize, to travel freely, and more. It requires what I call digital sanctuary. Digital sanctuary is the tech policies, platforms, and practices that extend sanctuary to all. It's the non-compliance of technologists, tech users, and companies in the face of this rising tide of hate. It is the choice that we must all make to divest from militarized police violence in a digital age and invest in humanity. I believe that we can do that. After a lifetime of fighting illness, First, my mom, watching her lose a lifelong battle with sickle cell anemia, and now my wife, who is currently battling stage 4 cancer. I will say this, I am tired of fighting. I would like some people to fight by my side. Are you ready? Because I believe that we are the dissenters. I believe that we are the makers, the organizers, the journalists, the artists. We are the new world struggling to be born. And we can be born, even in the face of monsters. Together, we can defy this new world order that seeks to use our technology against us. We can defend our communities with digital safety and security. We can demand the digital platforms, practices, and policies that enable the possibility of liberation in our lifetime, because we are the ones we've been waiting for. There isn't anyone else. The tools are in our hands. The time is now. The possibility is real. I thank you.